Chris, great to be with you today. Happy Thursday to you.
Yeah, you too. I thought I was the only one that said that, by the way. So before the show started, you said Happy Thursday. I'm like, all right, that's cool. That's what I always say. So let's dive in here. First, I think your expertise bears some definition here at the beginning. I know I just said a little bit in the intro, but can you define a little bit about, well, not define, but talk about how you got where you are today, but then define sort of the vehicle, if you will. And then we're going to dive into a bunch of different things here.
Yep. So started on the freedom quest when I was a young guy, watching my dad and my mom build houses in the Bay Area of California. And the freedom quest, I say that because we'd work long hours, and my brother and I wanted to figure out how to do things quicker, faster, easier, if you would, right? Mm-hmm. We grew up playing, video games and Legos and driving Bobcats, and my dad worked long hours, and we loved the work too. But at the same time, he said, you're going to go to college and you're going to get an education. You're not going to work as hard as I have to work. And so we said, okay, sure, Dad, whatever that means. And then that's fast forward. That's what we started to figure out. We went to college and we were on a quest to figure out how to use the gifts we've been given with real estate, because that was our background. And so fast forward through a lot of stuff. I went to Marcus and Millichap and learned about multifamily investment real estate and 1031 exchanges. And it became not just a cash flow game, it became a capital gains tax freedom game. And that was the 1031, but we quickly found out the 1031 is not always your friend. And sometimes it can be a real challenge. And a lot of people got hurt. And when they got hurt, we had to figure out a way why they got hurt. This was in the '08 crash. So I went from making a little bit of money to nothing overnight. So the new freedom quest became, how do we get free from capital gains tax without having feeling trapped by the 1031 exchange? Entered the Deferred Sales Trust. And fast forward, my wife and I, 5 kids, I get to just coach and training clients and people like yourself all the time. And it's really just a quest for more freedom for people, right? And there's different ways to get there. And the tax flow game is kind of my mission at this point.
So I got a couple of things that came out of that already. 5 kids. I should have known that. I knew you had a bunch. I just didn't know it was 5. So for the listener, because you got the wicked smart listeners, Brett. Some of them want to go your path. Some of them are following me, and some of them do a little of everything, notes, etc. So I want you to talk about just a little bit. First of all, how old are your kids? What are their ranges?
Yep, the youngest is 4. He's our baby boy, and I have 4 daughters. The oldest is 12.
Wow, you are busy, man. All right. I want them to hear that, because as I go through your business and lifestyle and things, they need to know that you got a full plate and you got a lifestyle. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, sir.
All right. So you said the words trapped by 1031. Can you, and you said that pretty passionately. Can you explain kind of what you alluded to there?
Yeah. And it's just the blood in the streets that I saw in '08. So Sacramento is one of the biggest boom bust cities in the country. And I saw clients, friends, and family lose half or everything because they had too much debt, not enough liquidity, not enough diversification. And I saw time and time again them doing these 1031 exchanges and loving to be a seller. I could sell at a high price, but hated to be a buyer because now the seller had them by the gun, right? 45 days to identify, 180 days to close. And there wasn't a lot of room to negotiate. So they end up buying properties that they otherwise wouldn't have purchased or made the deal on just because of the capital gains tax and the 1031 exchange, because it doesn't allow you to diversify, doesn't allow you to have liquidity, and requires you to take on equal or greater debt, becomes an absolute nightmare for people when a market starts to shift like we're seeing now.
I was going to say, perfect timing to talk about this.
Yeah, with the adjustable rate mortgages, right? With, we have sellers now who are saying, look, you have a good window if someone can assume your adjustable rate mortgage and you don't have to 1031. A lot of people are not selling right now because they say, look, I've got a great mortgage, but if I go buy something else, and by the way, sellers typically kind of even right, a little bit flat. A lot of them haven't pulled back yet, and you can't blame them, because where are they going to go with their capital if they have to pay a bunch of tax and they have to reset their interest rate on a new mortgage? And so it becomes kind of a stalemate, especially for commercial real estate. So I'll give you a case study of this too. So we had a client, he had about $50 million worth of real estate. He had about 80% leverage. He's a value add guy. He had done lots of 1031 exchanges. We sat down with him in '07. We said, look, we think you should sell now. We didn't know '08 was going to happen the way it was going to happen. We said, we think you should sell now and at least get to something else. He goes, guys, I'm like trapped in this 1031. I'm trapped with my debt and I don't know what to do. I had a lot of things go right. Fast forward a couple of years later, he goes bankrupt. He loses all of his properties, loses his house, loses his marriage. And essentially he got the opposite of freedom. He got into real estate to get passive income and get freedom. And now he found he was just trapped by capital gains tax and too much debt and the 1031 exchange. So that's what I mean by that. And so much more too. It doesn't work for crypto. It doesn't work for primary homes. 1031 does not work for businesses. Whereas what we do works for all asset classes. And so there's people who have cryptocurrency or a primary home or a business and they want to sell and they feel trapped by the capital gains tax. We come in, we rescue that, whereas the 1031 can't do anything except for investment real estate.
So let me ask you a question. I love asking questions for me, and then if they benefit everybody, perfect. You mentioned primary residence, and I was going prepping my questions for you. So primary residence, let's say I use my house, one of my houses. So I'm probably, my basis is probably, let's call it 600, maybe 500,000. Let's just use a round number. And it's probably worth 3 million. So I have exposure. You're telling me I can do something with the DST. I can do something. Can you explain how that would work?
Absolutely. Let me ask you a couple quick questions. Did you buy it for 500, Chris?
I built it. So
Built it, okay.
Yeah.
500 you're all in
for like 7. I was just going over time, but yeah.
But you're married and you lived there the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So we immediately add another 500 to your basis. So now you got $1 million basis, right?
Right.
And you're in Massachusetts, correct?
Rhode Island, close.
Okay, or Rhode Island. Okay, yep.
Yeah.
I think it's still pretty high there as far as the tax. So you have what's called a $2 million capital gains tax, right? 500 you built it for, 500 for your exclusion. So 3 million minus $1 million. I mean, some closing cost stuff, but roughly 2 million closing costs. So you're looking at whatever the state of Rhode Island is, right? Which I think is like maybe 5 or 7. Do you know?
I think it's 7.
Yeah, I think it's 7. So 7% plus the federal of 20%. So now you're at 27. Then potentially even Obamacare tax, which is 3.8. Okay. So now let's just say 30 is the number. So on $2 million, your challenge right now is a $600 tax liability, which is not 1031 eligible because it's not an investment property. What do you owe on it, Chris?
Highly nothing, 200 something grand.
Perfect. That's the best scenario, right? So at the close of escrow, it's really simple. Would you like to have, an extra $600,000 deferred along? You have to put all the money in the trust, right? If you want to keep it all deferred. You could also do a cash out refi though. So in your scenario, since your basis is $1 million, what we would actually recommend is you do a cash out refi up into your basis and then immediately sell, pay off the debt and put the excess, the 2 million into the trust. Cause this $1 million is not going to cost you anything. It's going to cost you the cash out refi, but you don't have to pay the ongoing fees with us. And you get to do whatever you want with that money, spend it on personal stuff. It's tax-free money. That's amazing. The other 2 million though would be cool because instead of having 1.4 after tax, you'd have 2. So yeah, that would be a home run.
All right, good. So I did that on purpose for selfish reasons, but also I want everybody to be able to think outside the box because that's not what people think. I've been at this 31 years, and until I met you, I think a year and a half ago, I didn't know about it. So very cool, very cool. And that's only one of my questions I wrote down. Brett, so we got some work to do here. All right, so 1031 we talked about sort of being trapped. What if someone's brand new to real estate? I'm just trying to think, is there anything in your world that applies to them? Because we do have that type of listener too, right? Hey, I'm brand new. I'm trying to leave my W-2. I make 6-7 figures a year. I want to get into real estate. Should they just keep you in mind for later, or where does that come in?
Good question. Like, who does this really work for and who qualifies it? You need to have at least $1 million net proceeds and $1 million gain per transaction, unless you have 2 at $500,000 each. And you say, well, why is that, Brett? Well, the pain, in other words, the tax liability needs to be big enough to hire us. What are your fees? Our fees are about 1.5% to close it one time. And about 1.5%. Yeah, and then about 1.5% to 2% recurring. So so you got to do the math. And so that's why we like to see like at $1 million gain at about $300,000 to $400,000 of tax. Okay, I could see that, paying that and that, right? So that's what we have. So, but you have a 2 at 500. So that's the first thing. So you're right. So a new person in this perspective, you might be trying to buy a deal from a seller on terms. This is what you guys practice, right?
Yeah.
And so that seller may or may not want to carry back paper for your newer investor. And it might be, let's do a bigger deal this time. Let's say it's a $10 million multifamily property. And you say, look, I know as a buyer, you want to be able to get it's hard to get financing for that. So you can try that route. But what if you brought in Chris as your GP partner? What if he bought that deal, but instead of the seller having to finance you guys, they can finance the trust, and they can be free with their money. In other words, a lot of sellers don't want to have even the thought of having to foreclose and take the property back. Yeah. So with the deferred sales trust, it gives them freedom to not have to do that, which means the buyer can make the deal. So essentially what we're trying to do is solve problems. And sometimes you do your first offer, second offer, third offer. But if you can offer that fourth offer could be us. So that's what I would say. It's for that new person who's trying to get that big deal, but all their stuff is just not quite working for that seller. We'll come with something that's a little more creative and a little more unique that speaks to their unique thing that they're trying to check. Here's also what I would say. Everyone's going from A to B, Chris, right? A is where they're at, B is where they're trying to go. So make sure you're clarifying B is where your seller wants to go, the person you're trying to buy it from, right? And if you don't know that, then it doesn't even matter what
couldn't agree more. I love it.
Yeah. And so once you can figure that out, then you could say, well, does this line up with the deferred sales trust? If so, present it. Does that make sense?
It does. We had a whole discussion on a high 6 associate call. It's one of our highest levels the other day. And just a smidge of what you were saying. One of our coaches said, look, the last call, I didn't talk about price or anything for the whole call and the student's like, why didn't you talk about price? I'm trying to figure out if I can help the guy. I'm trying to figure out what I'm solving here.
Yeah. It's like in a Rubik's Cube, right? I mean, you can see this video and watching it on YouTube here. Everyone shows up to these calls with us, and so do us. We all have different things that are a little bit out of order, right? And our job as, or if you're a buyer, or if you're a broker, if you're anybody, you're trying to get it as congruent as you can. And no solution is going to be the perfect solution, but we're just problem solvers. So show up with a curious mind, mirror and label is what I would say. Read Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, and figure out a way to just come alongside of them. And sometimes that means not doing the deal, telling them it's not a good deal for you, right? And then they're probably going to build some trust with you on that. And they might come back to you 6 months later and say, okay, what other ideas do you have? That's part of the process.
Yeah, you're singing our tune. I love it. And I love it for the marriage here with creative real estate. All right, so back to the DST. 2 things here that I'm thinking about. I'm thinking more, but I'll forget them as we go here. Can we do this with a business?
100%. Yeah, we do it with veterinarians. We do it with tech companies. We do it private and public stock. We do it with LP positions, GP positions, carried interest, horses, airplanes, anything really. That's the cool thing. Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, NFTs.
So someone sells, let me throw a scenario by a kind of a fake case study. Someone sells a biz, they got 5 million, that's exposed past the basis, whatever. I'm using 5 for math here. It all goes into the DST, a portion goes into the DST, they can use it all. They don't do how's that work?
Yeah, we have clients that want to take some out. And so the way we would say that is take whatever you want out. It's your money. You just pay tax on that. Think of it like a delayed tax trust. So let's say it's 5, they want $1 million to go build their big house, primary home on the ocean of Rhode Island. Great. Go do that. You'll just pay tax on that. Okay, great. The other 4 million can go in the trust. Number 2, the rest of the 4 million can have a payment coming out every month, every quarter, once a year. It can also delay for a couple of years based upon your needs or your wants. It's your money. But what you're doing is you're becoming the lender, right? This is not to be confused with the Delaware Statutory Trust, which is another form of it's a different DST. That's just part of the 1031 family, okay? You're becoming the lender. You don't own the trust. You've lent the money to the trust. It's an installment sale with the trust. The key is as a third-party trustee, that's our role. That's what we do. And we're servicing them and we're managing that. And you'll slowly take payments over time. You'll get a 1099 for whatever you receive. You'll report that on your tax return, and you'll pay ordinary income tax on that. If and when you dip into the principal, the 4 million at this point, you pay capital gains tax on that. Remember, the other $1 million you took up front, you already paid capital gains tax on that. So that's how that works.
Got it. So one more question on that. So in the DS, the money sits that 3, 4, 5 million, whatever sits in there. That presumably then, if I'm tracking with you, that the money in the DST with your help, that can go invest in anything, correct?
Yeah, it's very flexible. Anything that's investment or business purpose, right? So it can be investment real estate, it can be a business, it can be ground up development, it can be hard money lending, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. We do need to keep some liquid. We can't put 100% in illiquid assets. So typically 20%'s got to stay liquid.
Okay.
It's based upon the risk tolerance. It's based upon the note holders needs, and depending on
Yep.
their income needs. So yeah, but generally speaking, that's how that works.
I love it. Okay. What, I'm going to throw it back to you now, Brett. What am I not asking? I'm trying to, in my head, be a listener. So what am I missing that might help them understand a little bit more about what we have going on? And then, so I don't forget, let's precede it with, how the heck do they reach you? There's a lot here to unpack if they want to get with you. So how do they reach you? You can share anything you want.
Yeah. So first thing is, let's also make sure that if you're already do a 1031 exchange, that you have a backup plan in case it doesn't work out. So we provide basically a rescue plan. We work with a qualified intermediary. That's our #1 strategic alliance. And they allow the 1031, the Delaware Statutory Trust, and the Deferred Sales Trust. What a concept, right? You want a backup plan in case something fails. Not every accommodator wants you to know about this. Not every broker wants you to know about this. They want to keep you in the 1031 commission loop. I get it because I'm a broker myself. I love doing 1031 exchanges when they make sense. So there's nothing wrong with when you can find a great deal, but that's what I'll make sure you catch that real fast. That if you're going to do a 1031, call me so we can get you with a backup plan in case it doesn't work out. Okay. So Capital Gains Tax Solutions is the place. You can search that on YouTube. You can search it on iTunes, Spotify. CapitalGainsTaxSolutions.com is our website. We have our free ebook there. We also have our new book that's coming here. Let's see. Oh, here it is. You gotta get a copy right here. Here it is. So it's called Building a Tax-Deferred Exit Strategy. And we have people like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank in the book, and other multifamily syndicators and financial advisors. And it's basically our whole story of how we came to be, why we're here, and give you kind of the inside track to the Deferred Sales Trust and other capital gains tax deferral options.
That's awesome. We'll put that in the show notes for the Wicked Smart listeners, because that would be a cool base. And then they could perhaps get with you via your website and other means, right?
Exactly. And we do free, no consultation calls. As long as you qualify, you can apply online. You can go there, and we're happy to walk you through it. As long as you have $1 million net proceeds, $1 million deal, then you qualify.
I love it. I know we'll be talking outside of podcasts here to do some more stuff together. Anything else you want to share, Brett, that I didn't hit the audience on?
I would just say if you're ultra high net worth, we have an estate tax solution to eliminate the estate tax. So we're doing more and more of those deals. And also just clarify your freedom. Like, what are you trying to do? Right. I think that's the biggest thing, the COVID and the change, and life's too short. Like, clarify where you're trying to go, and then find the dream team to help you get there. If you can do those two things, I mean, man, you're going to obviously take action on the plan. You're going to go a lot further faster. So I just really encourage if you're listening to this and any of this is resonating, that you start taking action right now.
I love it. Thank you for the openness, and thank you for running me through my own case study on a mini version. That was great. Guys, listen, I said at the beginning, 31 years, going to my 32nd year in the biz. And until I met Brett, I heard DST, but I never dug in, and no one took the time to educate like Brett has. So it's cool. And that's what keeps me in real estate. It's forever changing. So Brett, thank you so much. All the stuff we talked about is in the show notes. Reach out to Brett. If you don't know someone right now that can use him, you will in the future. So stay tuned. Brett, thanks a bunch, buddy.
Thanks for having me.